Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to the Melissa M.A.D.E Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. Hello, and welcome to the Melissa M.A.D.E Show. So today I want to talk to you about tracking, devices that you can use to help track or aid in your weight loss, or what I would prefer to say, fat loss. That, I hope that, if you have extra weight to lose, you're looking to lose the fat, definitely not the muscle. So fat loss, how do we track how to lose the fat loss? So instantly, because I feel like I sound like a fitness magazine because we don't take into consideration anything outside of tracking your weight and tracking your macros to achieve a certain health goal that you have. I remember back I was dating my husband, Mick, and we started dating in 1990. Yeah, 1990. This is a hot minute ago. And his mom was on a quest to lose 100 pounds. And she was doing, what's his name? The cute little guy with the short shorts, Richard Simmons. And she was eating a very low calorie, low fat diet. And believe it or not, this is the side note. I don't know if Mr. Simmons is still around with us today, but when she lost the 100 pounds, he called her personally. How cool is that? She actually got a phone call from him. She was stoked, but she did lose the weight, and it was very hard, very difficult for her to do it calorie counting and low fat. That is a kudos. And she did not keep it off. It did come back on. But back in the day, all she cared about was writing on paper and looking on the labels and counting or looking at how many calories were in the food. And then she would look to see how much fat is in the food. And I think that's how anybody in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, maybe up into the 2010 to 2020, a little bit less, because that's, when even the American Heart Association said that fat is not bad. So anyway, I remember those days. And I remember even in the 90s when I, was the typical teenager who thought that they needed to lose some weight, that's what I would do as well. All I cared about were calories and fat grams. And so I still think we kind of lean towards that today. It comes down to, okay, Monday, it's always Monday, I'm going to start a diet, or I'm going to change the way that I eat. So you get one of those apps, those tracker apps, and you put in the food that you're eating, and it's going to tell you how many calories and how much protein and how much fat and how many carbohydrates that there are. And that's what you use to help you lose the weight, and to, using those quotes in my video, to help you get healthy. And it hasn't really worked for us over the last several decades. So I'm just really here to tell you, I don't know that it is your best bet, especially when you're starting. So if you are a perpetual dieter and you always find yourself starting on Monday, and you're going to start tracking your calories and you're going to start tracking your macros, but for some reason, that last dozen times that you've tried to do this doesn't work, but you're really hoping that it works this time, I want to try to change your mindset a little bit. We go to the scale So we track our progress by how much we weigh. We go to the label on food to track how to lose weight. Okay. And I'm here to tell you, so this podcast stemmed from this morning. I'm just, like I said, coming off of, I didn't say that, but I am just coming off of a trip to Paris, or to France, to the Champagne region, and a couple of days in Paris. And I came back 6 pounds lighter. And I cannot understand why. I'll be honest with you. I felt like I ate plenty and I drank a lot. I'm very sick of champagne. But I was really surprised to get on my in-body scale, which is ridiculously accurate, and for it to be about 6 pounds, between 5 and 7 pounds lighter than normal. And I don't weigh myself very often, but I did weigh myself maybe a week or before I went. And so it really surprised me that I had lost weight. But the scale is not an indication for me of my health. And my husband kept asking me, he goes, what do you find is your lean weight? And he kept asking, and we almost kind of got in an argument about it, because I was like, I don't have one. He's like, oh, sure you do. He says, listen, this man's known me for 30 years. So he's talking from a long time ago. I used to obsess about the scale. I used to want to be very, very light. I'm 5'7", and to me, somebody who's 5'7", like, let's use a fitness competitor. When I see a fitness competitor competing and they put up their stats and they're 5'7", they're usually in the 130s. I would have to cut off a limb to be 130 pounds. I don't know how they do it because I have a 15% body fat. I don't know how they do it. Maybe I have a big brain. Can we blame it on a big brain? Probably not. Big bones. I have big bones. I don't know, but I'm heavy. I'm heavy for 5'7". But I used to obsess about the scale, especially when I would see a really fit girl being in 130s. I'm like, well, I should be in 130s. And then I really resolved to being comfortable in 140s range. And the crazy thing is, now 48 years old and just having that DEXA scan done, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and finding out that I'm at 15% body fat and my muscle mass is the highest it's ever been. Guess what? I weigh more. So in order for me to lose weight, I would have to lose muscle mass. So I'm imploring you to not really worry about the scale. Find other ways to measure progress, like a DEXA scan, or you could be like me and invest way too much in an in-body machine. You can come to my house and use mine. Okay, come to my house, you can use mine. Then I can justify the price I paid for it, because right now I'm thinking that was not the smartest investment. Anyway, something like that to measure your progress in your goal of building muscle, because we all want lean muscle, especially as we get older, and then to lose body fat if we need to. I mean, if you're at a comfortable body fat percentage, don't feel like you need to keep losing it just to reach a very low number, because there's no need for that. The goal is to be healthy. So anyway, we had that almost an argument about it, because I just didn't really want to put my thumb on a number of what I felt was considered healthy for me on the scale. So the scale can be data, but it is like the bottom of the barrel data. Okay. The bottom of the barrel. So what I want to talk to you about is things that I think you should track, especially if you've just not been successful in the past at losing the weight or losing the fat, is to consider tracking these things. And then when you get like really close to your goal and you really want to dial it in, then maybe we can work on putting the scale to use, which I still think if you're gaining muscle and losing fat, that scale is going to deter you. Take a picture of yourself instead. So much more accurate, or get one of those tests. I'm telling you, Groupon always has great deals for these companies that have these machines that you can go in and get a really accurate reading of how you're doing on your muscle gain and your fat loss. But instead of tracking your macros, instead, number one, really concentrate on changing your diet to be a whole foods based diet. 80 to 85% of the time. Now, and I've talked about this many times. So for my avid listeners, this is just review, but say for instance, you eat 3 meals a day. And so for a week, you've got 21 meals a day. And if you want to be good, 90% of the time, you can still have, of those 21 meals, you can have 2 that are off course, right? They're not on course, they're off course. So you can have 2 meals, and I'm not saying you can eat more calories. I'm just saying you can eat something that's, not the healthiest thing for you. Like you can have your pizza, or you can have your, baked Lays. Believe it or not, I kind of like those. I like them way better than a regular potato chip, and they're not any better for you. Or you have baked Lays and, whatever else for lunch, as opposed to what you normally have, which is healthy. So you can have 2 meals a week that are off course and still do really well, still be there 90% of the time. But if 90% of the time your diet is, lots of colorful vegetables, you've got some fruits in there, especially berries, you've got your proteins, and you've got your healthy fats sprinkled in there, first and foremost, you will feel amazing. I guarantee you're going to sleep better. Your mood is going to change, and you will probably lose weight without having to track macros, without having to track calories and stepping on that scale. Just change your diet to a whole foods based diet. And you know what a whole food is. It is the things in the grocery store that are on the outside and in the back hidden, because they want you to go through all of the processed foods where there's more money to be made. But it's all the things that don't necessarily, they do, but they don't have a barcode on them. They don't have an ingredients list on them. You just try every meal to have a vegetable or 2, have a couple colored vegetables, especially the greens, and then to make sure that there's fat involved and there's a healthy protein with every single meal. And you know me, I would love to see you just have 3 meals a day, and to try to cut out that snacking as well. But 3 really big, healthy, whole food based meals. That's where I would love for you to start if you've been a failed dieter for a really long time. But once you get more comfortable and you kind of go through that withdrawal of eating the processed foods, and you're more comfortable and you're finding ways to cook these healthy foods, you're like, okay, I'm ready to start, kind of tracking and getting a little bit more in tune with what eating for me is going to be to help get me and keep me at this healthy weight. So then what I want you to start tracking is the sugar intake that you're having. If you're eating a whole foods based diet, I guarantee it's going to be pretty dang good, but you still might be having a little too much sugar here and there, especially if we have a lot of fruit in our diet. There's no need to have a lot of fruit. Just a serving or 2 of fruit, especially berries, a day is great. But to have 5 or 6, or what does the food pyramid say, 6 to 11 of fruits and vegetables is just a little too much. So to really just watch that sugar intake and to see where you're at, and keep in mind that you want to be probably about 25 grams a day, and try to keep it there and see if you can. That's a excellent thing to track for yourself. How about you also track your sleep? I know it's the first thing that we give up or we don't think about when it comes to weight loss and being healthy, but there are so many studies showing that people who don't get adequate sleep, how much they struggle with staying at a healthy weight. I mean, it has been clearly documented that your lack of sleep is going to create disparage in your body, and you are not going to be able to keep weight off or to get it off if you're not getting adequate sleep. So start tracking your sleep. Now, I'm wearing an Oura ring. I think they are great. They are expensive, but if you really struggle to sleep, it's incredibly eye-opening because it monitors like when you fell asleep, if you went into deep sleep, how long you did, if you went into REM, how long was your light sleep? Did you wake up often? It's mind-blowing and eye-opening, hopefully not while you're sleeping, to learn that kind of stuff. But sleep is really important. So tracking your sugar, tracking your sleep. How about your fiber intake? And I'm not talking about eat all the fiber. Believe it or not, for people that are constipated, they may not be getting enough fiber in their diet. And you're like, well, duh, Melissa, but guess what? There are also certain people who get too much fiber. And believe it or not, that causes constipation as well. It's not as common as becoming constipated because you're not getting enough. But there are groups of people who actually get constipated by having too much fiber. So track your fiber. You should be, in a nice normal range. Let's just put a number on it and say 30 grams a day of fiber to try to get that in a day. That's so important for so many things. Satiety, for your gut microbiome, to help move food through your system so you have nice, healthy bowel movements. Fiber is very important. And anybody who tells you it's not, I don't know. It's important, but you don't have to overdo it. And you also want to make sure that you're not underdoing it. How about tracking? So when I went through NTA, Nutritional Therapy Association, one of the things that we did when we worked with clients was we helped them document a food, mood, and poop journal. Now, this was so eye-opening for the clients that I worked with because number one, you're tracking your food. So more for the NTP to be able to see, what you're eating, how much you're eating, when you're eating, but then the mood that comes with the food. So how did you feel before you ate it? How did you feel after you ate it? Meaning that, how did you feel emotionally? Were you like starving at that point before you ate? Do you feel guilty after you ate whatever you ate? Were you, not hungry, but you were bored? Do you feel full? Or even after eating that meal, do you not feel full? But just to document the moods that you're feeling around the foods that you're eating is the most important thing. For someone who is struggling with eating healthy on a consistent basis, listen to me. This is the most important thing that you can do. And don't tell me you don't have time to do it. You can click the notes section in your phone and just really fast talk into it and keep a journal for at least a week of how your moods are with the foods that you're eating, even before you decide to maybe change the way that you eat. To see that in black and white, that, wow, every day at 3:00 when I have my coffee and my bag of chips, I am tired. And afterwards, I actually get a high for an hour and then I get even more tired. So to see those kind of things is just incredible for your mental health and also for changing your diet in a way that you're not struggling on a daily basis. You're not constantly thinking of food because you're feeding your body in the way that it reacts in a positive way. So food, mood, and poop journal, because again, this is just one really great way to see whether or not your food is not doing your body well. You have heard me say this from day one, that more people suffer from a gluten sensitivity or a lactose or dairy sensitivity than they realize. And it's not, listen to me, it's not because gluten in itself and dairy in itself are bad or something that we should have never have eaten. It's normally because we're in a state of dysbiosis where our body just isn't, our digestion is just a little wonky. And when it's a little wonky, gluten and dairy are the first things that make you feel worse. They give you the bloating, they give you the gas, they give you the cramps, they give you the diarrhea, they give you the acne. So many things happen because of that. And so if you're tracking with the food in the mood journal and then also your poop, you might very well see in your poop that, gosh, when I have dairy, an hour and a half later, I am on the toilet letting it all go. I leased that lunch. I did not buy it. I leased it. And it was a very short-term lease. So by doing that, you will be blown away. And it takes discipline to do that, but you're willing to track your macros and you're willing to track your calories. So why wouldn't you be willing to track how you feel when you eat and what your poops are like around, the life, a day in the life of your eating cycle and how it's affected. And you have to do this for a little while because you might have a really great bowel movement one day and you're like, oh, this was a good diet for me, but something can take longer than that. Or it could be a combination of foods that you have together that will cause you to get constipated or to get bloated or to have diarrhea. So first, foremost, change your way of eating to getting rid of the ultra processed foods. 90% of the time, you can do that. That's still 2 times a week that you can have that little, I don't want to say treat. I don't want you to treat yourself with ultra processed foods. And I don't want to say bad food because people get mad at me when I call food bad. So I'm going to call it off course meals. You still can have that twice a week. That is plenty to keep, for people that want that mental flexibility to be able to have something that they really truly love twice a week. Okay. You could have that Starbucks drink twice a week. Maybe it's Saturday and Sunday morning or Monday morning if you know you're going to have a hectic day, whatever. But to track your sleep, to track your fiber intake, to track the amount of sugar that you're having in a day is so much more important than you tracking how much protein you have in a day. Now, protein is important. And after this podcast, I'm going to do another podcast again on protein because she's important, but she's not near as important as you understanding how your body reacts to the foods by your mood and by the bowel movements that you have eating that food, right? How the quality of the food that you're putting in your body is so much more important than the macronutrient, because man, I could take a boxed frozen pizza and it could be macronutrient perfect. It just could be, but it's not good for you. It's not fueling you. It's not nourishing you. It's one of the 2 meals a week that you can have that, might sound good and taste really good, but they're not the food that's going to keep you happy and healthy and living for a long time. So tracking, when it comes to tracking, if you haven't found the perfect system right now for you, and maybe you have, maybe there's the 10% of you that loves and thrives off of the calorie and the macro counting, good for you. But what is the statistic? 95, 98% of us fail at our diets. And this is the reason, because we're not tracking the right things. You can get to the point that you want to track that, but I want to encourage you to start with that whole foods-based diet to track your fiber, your sugar, your sleep, your mood. You can track your food to track your mood and your poop. And if you do those things and you don't have an aha moment, then I'm going to allow you to cut my hair. Actually, I wouldn't care. It would be my husband that would care. But I really think it would make a significant difference in your success, in you creating a sustainable lifestyle that you can live with, because you are learning so much about your body and you know when you thrive. And when you know and you feel when you thrive, you want to stick to it. I am telling you, you want to stick with it. But if you're just counting those macros and those calories, you're not figuring out which foods do you well versus the foods that don't. So give this a try. And then you can go to that other stuff that works for 5% of the population, because it might work for you then because you figured all the other stuff out. So I hope that was helpful. Track, but don't think about tracking those macros and don't think about tracking those calories. Get deeper, get more personal than that, and you will see great success. So as always, MADE stands for many things. Making a difference every day is one of them. I want you to wake up feeling very prepared, and I want you to go to bed feeling very proud. You have a great day. Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.